Alright, so let's take a look at your Pythagorean theorem guided notes. So if you haven't done so, put your name at the top, first and last name, get your pencil out, you have your highlighter, and let's go ahead and get started. So at the top it says a Pythagorean theorem, identifying the parts of a right triangle. A right triangle is a triangle that contains a right angle. So I want you to highlight right triangle. So it's in bold, so a right triangle. So highlight that. Two examples of right triangles you see on your paper. So you're given two examples. So I want you to take a look at those. You see the next bullet, it says the longest side of a right triangle is called the hypotenuse. So fill in that blank. Hypotenuse, hypotenuse. It is always, highlight always, opposite of the right angle. Fill in right angle in those two blanks. So you filled in hypotenuse, and you filled in right angle, and then you highlighted always. The two shortest sides of the triangle are called the legs. So highlight two shortest sides, and then fill in legs. Next section where it says example. It says, please circle the right triangles. If you think triangle 1 is a right triangle, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hands down. If you think triangle 2 is a right triangle, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hands down. If you think triangle 3 is a right triangle, raise your hand. If you think all three of them are right triangles, raise your hands. For all of you guys that have your hands up right now, you are correct. All three of those are right triangles. So I want you to circle all three. Circle all three triangles. Good job for those of you that got that correct. The second part says, please label the legs and hypotenuse of each right triangle. So in this first example, I want you to write leg, I want you to write leg, and I want you to write hypotenuse. Remember, hypotenuse is the longest side. It's right across from the angle, so it's opposite of the right angle. So write leg, and then write hypotenuse. I want you to do the same thing for the second and third triangle with your partner. So I want you to work together with your partner, and I want you to fill in leg, and hypotenuse. Alright, let's take a look on the back side of your notes. So at the top it says, a theorem is a mathematical statement that can be proven true using other statements that have already been proven true. The Pythagorean theorem was discovered and proven by an ancient Greek philosopher named Pythagoras. You can highlight Pythagorean theorem. There's a little picture for you. You can see Pythagoras. Next bullet says, the Pythagorean theorem states that in any right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. And we'll put that with variables in just a second. We generally use the Pythagorean theorem to find a missing or unknown side. So fill in side of a right triangle. So fill that in your notes. Next one, very important. Remember, the Pythagorean theorem only works for right triangles. It only works for right triangles. So please underline only and then fill in right triangles. So it only works for right triangles. In the middle of your page, you see the Pythagorean theorem. It says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Highlight that, circle it, Pythagorean theorem. And then you have a nice diagram right there that points to each of the legs and your hypotenuse. So box in that, circle it, star it, highlight it. Pythagorean theorem, what we're going to be working with the next few days. Next part, it says in the Pythagorean theorem, A stands for a leg. A is always going to stand for a leg. B stands for a leg. B is always going to stand for a leg. And C stands for the hypotenuse. So A and B are legs, C is hypotenuse. Helpful hint I put on there for you. It says when you are using the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side of a right triangle, make sure you first label each side of the triangle with the letters A, B, and C. We are only using A, B, and C with Pythagorean theorem. So just a little helpful hint. When you get a triangle, label it with A, B, and C so we don't mix anything up or have any confusions, so we don't miss a point or so from plugging in the wrong numbers. So make sure you label each of your triangles with A, B, and C. All right, let's take a look at these statements and see which ones are true or false.